Hey there, couples. Welcome to Date Night. Tonight, Tracy, we are going to talk about getting 5-point clarity for your family. It's about taking ownership in the areas of mission, vision, values, strategy, and culture.
Yeah, you know, at the time when Brian made this suggestion, because he had done this in a workplace setting and it was awesome for the organization he had worked with, he's like, let's do this as a family. And at first I was like, I don't know, do we really want to sit down? Are we really going to have a mission statement and, have all these goals and this vision for our family? But as we started talking, what I realized about it is, it's so important to identify like what your mission is as a family, what your values are, where you're trying to go, because that's going to that affected the way we spent our time, our money. Like there's a lot that goes into that I think would be super helpful for couples and families to talk through.
In fact, we did this with our kids, right? 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We just pulled out the worksheet. In fact, this worksheet's available down below. We encourage you to use this and fill it out, print it out, fill it out, do it on your iPad. I was just looking at this. Our daughter was 14 when she filled this out, and part of her vision statement was she was going to be a freshman at the U in 3 years, right? Well, we're happy to announce that she accomplished her vision a few years after this. She is now going to be a senior at the U next year. So it's pretty cool that they took ownership of this. We actually had our kids fill it out, and then we hung it up in our pantry so that every time they went in there to get some food, and our 17-year-old boy does that all the time. They're reminded of what they said was their own personal vision. Now, we're going to get into all that in just a second. But it really is great for kids, but even for couples. If you don't have kids yet, or maybe the kids are gone, it's almost like a little bit of a State of the Union opportunity.
Very much so.
But you can get really specific with these 5 things. So take a look at this image and we'll walk you through them. First, your values. Those are the principles that matter to you. We're going to encourage you to write down 3 or 5 values. Your mission is the why behind it all. We encourage you to write a personal mission statement as a family or as a couple. Your vision is the inspiring picture of your future. We'll talk in a second about the difference between those two things. Your strategy is the actionable roadmap that gets you from your mission statement, to your vision someday down the road. And then finally, your culture. And I like to define your culture as today's habits. And you'll notice that there's a gap between your culture, what you're doing today habitually, and your strategy, what you should be doing to arrive at your vision.
Yeah, this was interesting for our son. At the time that he did this 5 years ago, he was really involved in competitive basketball. And one of his vision items was, to play collegiate basketball, maybe get to the NBA someday. And so we started talking about some of the culture surrounding his life, which included a lot of, Netflix and not so much exercising or doing a lot of conditioning. And so we had to kind of look at that and say, if that's a goal you have to recognize what it's going to take to get there. So we need to change some things in your habits and in your culture. That gap is pretty wide, which was good for him to then start to evaluate, well, maybe that's just a dream, not really a vision for my life.
Yeah, so let's talk for a second about the difference between mission statement and vision statement. So your mission statement is sort of this thing that it shouldn't change very often, maybe once every 10 or 20 years. So as a couple, as a family, maybe your mission statement is something like, we want to love each other and get along. That's a little cheesy, but that's an example.
Or learn new things.
Yeah, right.
Every year.
So that might be an example of a mission statement.
Yeah.
But a vision is where you say, no, look, I want you to paint an inspiring picture. Where do you see yourself in 5 years or in 10 years? So the vision statement, you can start getting specific. Well, I want to be making this much money, or we want to have this many kids, or right? So you're painting a picture. I always like to say to people, close your eyes and tell me what you see in 5 years. And that's where, again, our daughter said, I see me being at the university and studying, and I'm going to be a straight A student to get there, and I'm going to be on scholarship, right? So that was her vision.
Now, if we look at strategy for a second, you'll see on that worksheet that in that section, it asks you to come up with 3 to 5 strategic objectives, things that you want to accomplish to move you closer to that vision that you have for your life.
And what's fun about the exercise is if you're anything like us, you're going to write down what's your culture? Like, what do you do in a typical day, in a typical week? Like Tracy said, maybe there's a lot of Netflix, maybe there's a lot of video games, maybe, you know, if we're talking about your kids, well, maybe we're even talking about you as a couple. And what you do is it's a little bit of, it gives you an epiphany because you realize, wait a second, this is what I say I want in 5 years. I want to make $100,000, whatever, right? This is what I say I want, but my habits today are definitely not going to get me there. And that's what the culture gap is all about. The culture gap is all about what's really true of you today. Take a hard, honest look at what you typically do. And is that going to land you where you think you want to be in the future? Because otherwise you're just lying to yourself.
Right.
And again, you can see how great this is for kids to do, for junior hires or high schoolers to take ownership of their future, of their careers, whatever. But again, for this conversation, we're talking about it for couples. I think the same is true, Tracy, for couples. You might start working on your mission statement and your vision statement as a couple, and you realize that your culture today, the stuff you're doing today, isn't going to land you where you want to be in 5 or 10 years.
Right. And I think that this is really important how it ties in with your finances, because depending on what some of those strategic objectives might be, it might be we need to save X amount of money over the course of 2 years in order to get to that next phase that we want to go to, you know? So it might mean we're going to have to sacrifice now in our budget in order to make that future thing happen. And that is really helpful as a couple to work towards something together, for a family to have some of those goals and to have futuristic, you know, focused on the future. But what do we need to do today to make that future possible?
So the exercise is called getting 5-point clarity for your family. You can do it as a couple, you can do it as parents, you can do it with your kids, you can have them fill their own worksheet out, you fill yours out as a couple. Download the worksheet below, have this conversation. I think in 4 or 5 years, you'll be glad you did.